Hello everybody, today we'll be checking out Eloise and how to build her. Let's start with the gear. So most of the time you are gonna be using full resonance gear on her. If you don't have resonance, you can just use the class set, ranger class, or like 6 star, whatever. You don't need to split the gear most of the time, unless you are struggling to survive in a way, for example. In that case, you can try 2-2 split for more HP, but most of the time full resonance or full gear is just the best setup on her. And next up we have the stones. Now, Eloise is pretty good with attack HP stone. You can just get it and don't look back to the stones at all. Like, use it everywhere basically. However, there are some situations where your block might not be enough. For example, you are facing a penny wave or other heroes that might have precision, or even some waves that actually have precision on the heroes as a bonus. So in those situations, you might be using block HP or block attack stone to get your block up a little bit to be able to actually use the block at all. Otherwise, they are just gonna hit you and you cannot block them. And other than these stones, attack might be an option, especially if you are using an AMB, so you just want to maximize your attack to reduce the incoming damage. But yeah, overall just use the attack HP stone. Don't really have to worry about the other stones. Next up we have the artifacts. Now, of course, Crown is the best artifact on Eloise. You can use it on everywhere basically. However, there are some situations where you might be using AMB or Torch. Torch is a very optional one. You can clear Shadow Seal and 25 or 20 with all three of these artifacts, depending on which stat you just want to utilize. If you can get out of attack, just put an AMB and be done with it. If you need to survive, you cannot get a lot of attack, Crown is probably the best bet. However, Torch also seems to work in Sealand. I didn't really clear it with Torch myself, but I know some people, so that's why I wanted to include it. If you somehow get lucky with like I don't know, maybe Bond Radio and get a couple of torches, you can use a glittery one to clear it, I guess. Other than that, never get a torch with relics or from artifact chests, obviously. It's a very bad artifact. Like Eloise might be the only one that is using torch in only one specific case, which is just a seal land, so never ever get torch. Just wanted to put something there. And yeah, if you have enemies that do a lot of dot or ping damage, for example, like Garuda active hits you multiple times, or Russell just basic attack or active both, whenever you get hit, he will keep pinging you for many times. In those cases, AMB might be reducing the incoming damage to zero basically. You'll just take 1 damage. So in those cases, you might be using AMB. However, Crown is still gonna reduce the damage by a lot. So unless you die with Crown, you never want to switch to AMB really. And next up we have the enables. Now the usual setup is 1-1-4-1-2, I believe. You can of course change it around, like resilience is something to consider. If you don't need any of the other um, resistances like other purifies, you can just use resilience for a little bit more healing. Other than resilience, you can of course use dot purify if you are facing dot enemies like Meme, Voldeck, Katuga, whatever. Dot purify can work for those. Or if your enemies have like armor reduction or any other attack steal, whatever, just a lot of, attribute reductions, you can use attribute reduction purify. For the second enable, you can always switch to vitality instead of shelter if your enemies don't crit you. That is the important part. As long as you don't get crit, you can switch to vitality. If you do get hit by crits, it's way more important to have the shelter because Eloise heals a lot naturally anyway. You will most likely have full HP after she heals, so vitality is gonna be wasted in those cases. However, Shelter is very good as long as your opponent has the ability to crit you. Now, of course, Eloise is not a hero that has imprints or tree of origin, so don't really have anything to show in that case. However, I wanted to talk about a few synergies here. So first of all, for Shadow Seal Land, of course, Styx is a very good support. You can always use Annabelle as well to exchange their active skills, so you don't get one shot. And other than that, Itakura doesn't really help much in Seal Land. What else? Gustin can help actually, but you kind of want him to be strong, have a lot of HP, so he actually gets to survive a little bit. But overall, the Tiggs is the best hero to support in Seal Land. There is also Onkirimaru, which kind of helps with the armor or damage reduction buff you can get, depending on where you place Onkirimaru. So that is something to consider as well. Other places, like except the Sealand, you are always going to have Ignis near Eloise. Of course, like behind her if possible. And you can always use it in front of her as well if Ignis is the first spot and Eloise is second. In that case, Ignis cannot feed anyone else, so it will just bounce back to Eloise. So just feed your Eloise with a Suicide Ignis, and she won't get CC'd. In that case, you don't need to use CC Purify either. You can just pick whatever Purify you want, or, Resilience, depending on your enemy wave. You can just change it around, and you don't have to worry about CC. You don't take out of damage because of the damage reduction she gets. So yeah, Ignis is the best support for Eloise. Suicide one, of course, and 9-star Ignis, Suiciding is the best support for Eloise. And we also have Voldeck. Voldeck is another Ebi-Zero that is a good support for Eloise. Voldeck can be 6-star or 9-star, like it is whatever, not that important. 9-star if you can, otherwise 6-star is good enough. Again, he just gets a little bit of more survivability for Eloise because of the on-hit healing she gets. And he is there to just suicide. Again, he can just die right away. And the buffs stay on for a few rounds, pretty good. Other than these, there is the Force faction, which has Rogan. Now, Rogan isn't the best with Eloise, She doesn't rely on crit damage and all. She doesn't need speed either. However, attack buff is good on any hero you can imagine in the game. Like, as long as it is not a healer like Ignis. Everything requires more attack to do more damage, so, Rogan can be a filler for your team if you have an empty slot. And otherwise, Shaho is also another good one with Eloise. Since Shaho gives your team buffs whenever your team blocks hits for like 6 times, I think. And Eloise is gonna block every attack she gets hit by. So, very good synergy. Also, Shaho buffs are very defensive, give armor and attack. So armor is also very good for Eloise, of course. She is just a tank, dealing out of damage. And both of those are very good buffs on Eloise. So Shaho is a good pillar as well. And then at last we have the Dark faction, which is Kerry. Kerry is pretty good with Eloise because as long as your enemies don't get to use their actives, which is going to be the most of their incoming damage, if they just use a basic instead, Eloise can tank further and she won't die. She will just deal more damage. And there you go. And multiple carries even you can use them. Like enemy basic attacks are probably never gonna kill your Eloise most of the time. So as long as they don't get to use an active, you'll be tanking everything and dealing a lot of damage through round. And that's why carry is a good support. Now for the monsters, I didn't make a page for that, but of course Lion is a good one with Eloise. Because of the buffs, and also she gets a shield, very good stuff. Other than that, Deer could be okay because it is a very defensive pet, and Phoenix is always good with any hero, so you can always use it. And that's all I got. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.